It is recording.
We're recording?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Yafi. We have a new recruit. High tech. Okay. So thank you very much. We are on page 416. We're actually going to jump around a little bit. Because first, before we get to some of the ideas here, I just wanted... It seems very disjoint. Whereas last week's Parsha was Parshat Yitro, and we ended off with the 10 Commandments, right? That we all heard. And then we have, going back to page 412 of 413, Hashem said to Moses, verse 19, "So shall you say to the children of Israel, you've seen that I've spoken to you from heaven. Do not make images with me, gods of silver, gold, gods of gold. Don't make for yourselves." On page 415, "An altar of earth shall you make for me." Right? 22, "And you make for me an altar of stones. Do not build them hewn." Right? It can't be worked on with metal implements. "Do not ascend my altar on steps. And these are the ordinances you should place before them," page 417. So where, when is all of this happening? So the way the Ramban learns, right? And then we have all of these different ordinances. And if you go now to the end of the Parsha, on page 441, "And to Moses he said, go up to Hashem, you, Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall bow yourselves from a distance. Moses alone shall approach Hashem. You will not approach." Right? Moses told the people all the words of Hashem. So what is the order? And then on the seventh day, Moses went up. Right? What is the order that is going on over here? So the way Ramban explains is very, very ordered and very, very cogent. What he says is, Moshe, on the sixth day, we all heard the 10 Commandments. Then Hashem started teaching Moshe the explanations of all of these commandments. Right? The first commandment was, "I am Hashem," and the second one, "There should not be any other gods." So on page 414, what do we hear about? Right? "Don't make images of what is with me. Gods of silver, gods of gold." And then Hashem started to tell Moshe about all of these ordinances, all of these day-to-day, nitty-gritty laws. All this took place, and then Moshe came down at the end of this parsha and told it to the children of Israel. And then there were sacrifices that were brought. And then on the seventh day, meaning the seventh day of Sivan, the day after that, that's when Moshe, he came down, he told this to everyone, and then he reascended Sinai for the 40 days and 40 nights. That's how Ramban understands all of this. Now, what are all, if don't make these different gods of silver and gold is the explanation of the second of the commandments, what are all of these day-to-day civil law, Jewish bondsmen, wages, damages, right, self-defense, borrowing, right, judicial process, free loans? How does all of this fit into the 10 Commandments?
Just explanations.
Explanations of which, Leah? Of what? Of which?
Ben Adam L'Adam.
Ben Adam L'Adam, Ben Adam L'Chaveiro. Good. Which one specifically? So if we remember, we ended off the 10th of the Commandments was on page 413. Lo tachmod. You shall not covet your fellow's house, your fellow's wife, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, nor anything that belongs to your fellow. V'chol asher l're'echa. Everything that belongs to your friend. So now we need to know what belongs to me and what belongs to others. So now our Parsha is going to get into all of these very, no better word I think than nitty-gritty laws. Right? If you're watching someone's things and it got stolen, it got lost, it got damaged, who's responsible? How responsible are you? Are you getting paid to watch it? Are you doing it for free? Are you utilizing it? Or are you not utilizing it? If you're utilizing it, are you paying for that utilization? Are you renting it? Or are you borrowing it? Or are you watching it? Are you being paid to watch it or not paid to watch it? And all that will determine the level of obligation. It's all of this very nitty-gritty sort of laws. And we start off with the laws of slaves, of Jewish slaves. Now, how does one become a slave?
He sinned. He stole. He bore. He took money.
Okay.
Pay back.
So one way that a person becomes a Jewish slave is if he stole, not damaging, but if he stole and can't pay it back.
War.
So I'm sorry.
War.
Not war.
No, but also war.
Oh, we'll come to that soon, right? He stole and he can't pay it back. He will be sold, and the money for which he is sold for will go to pay back the person from whom he stole and couldn't pay back. Okay? How long is he a slave for? Maximum? 6 years. 7th year he goes out free. And that's not a calendar, right? That's his personal, right? Unless the Yovel year comes out in the middle. The Jubilee 50th year, he goes free. Let's say he comes up with some money. What happens? The owner must take compensation. Right? He was sold for 6 years for $600. He comes up with $400. After 2 years, he goes out free. The Torah, right? That's one way he becomes a slave.
I'm sure you're getting to this because you're Rabbi Ciner. But how is this even relevant? Why are we to today? Because I know you're going to get there, right? You're going to get there.
Yeah, we're going to come there. Yeah. There's there are a lot of messages for us.
Okay.
Look, one thing a point that I always like to make over here is how the Torah was given at the time it was given and needed to speak to the world that was. At the same time, the Torah is eternal and it must speak to the world that is, right, for every generation. Now, if we pause for a moment, we see that, wow, at that time, this was revolutionary. Because a person was a slave. When he was a slave forever. He and his children and his grandchildren and on and on and on. There was no way out. Well, there was one way out, but there was no way out above ground. Only underground was the way a person would stop. Right? And this is revolutionary. 6 years, Yovel, it's to pay off a crime of stealing. You owe the money, well, you got to get it back to the person you stole it from. Now, another way the person becomes a slave is a person can sell himself into slavery. Why would a person sell himself into slavery? So, well, before we get to that, now, the pasuk says when he goes out, right, when he goes out, his wife should go out with him. And elsewhere we speak about his wife and children. They didn't go into slavery. Why are they going out? So we learn out from here they don't go into slavery. But the owner must support his wife and children during that time that he is in slavery. Now, how is he treated? What type of work can he be given? So he can't be given stupid work or nonsense work. Keep him busy. Dig that, fill it up, dig it, fill it up, dig it, fill it up. He can't do that. Not only that, but the Talmud teaches us, Kol hakone eved kekone adon la'atzmo. When you acquire a slave, it's like you acquired an adon, a master. How is that? Because the Gemara says, the pasuk, the verse says, Ki tov lo imach. It's good for you. It's right. Sometimes he might want to stay on afterwards. Why? Ki tov lo imach. It's good. He's got it good by you. And we learn now imach. It's got to be with you. Meaning, if you buy yourself a memory gel mattress, then you've got to get him a memory gel mattress. Right? Whatever you get for yourself, Tov lo imach. Now, let's say you only have enough money for one memory gel mattress. Right? So, right? You can't take it for yourself and not for him. Why? Kis tov lo imach. You can't say, well, if I'm not going to have it, there's no way that he's going to have it, because that is called midat Sodom. That's called the way of Sodom, of Sodom. Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom. Well, if I can't have it, no way you're going to have it. Why not? If you can't have it, let someone else have it. Right? Famous story, I think they say about the Chavetz Chaim, that he was on a train going through the brutal winter there of Poland, Russia. And as they rounded, I guess the window was open a little bit. And as they rounded a turn, his glove flew out the window. So what did he do? He quickly took the other glove and threw it out. Right? I'm not going to have any use of it. Let someone else have a pair of gloves. Right? What's one glove going to do for him? One glove going to do for me? I can't get that one. Let him at least have this one. Right? That's the idea of midat Sodom. That's the antithesis, of course, of midat Sodom. Right? Midat Sodom is if I can't have it, no one's going to have it. Right? And the way we're supposed to, if I can't have it, let someone else enjoy it. So therefore, the Eved will have it, the slave will have it, and the master won't have it. Now, a person might willingly, voluntarily sell himself into this, again, 6-year maximum, Yovel, cutoff, slavery. Why would a person do that?
Maybe it would be a better life than he could give to himself.
Yeah, to me, yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, it sounds like, what communism is meant to, was ideally supposed to be. Right? I don't have to worry about anything. Listen, I'll tell me what to do. I'll work 9 to 5. I'll work 9 to 6. I'll work 9 to 7. And let me just know I don't have bills to worry about. I don't have to worry about all these things. Right? Or kibbutz. Kibbutz. Kibbutz is where communism, socialism, did work. Right? I'll do my job, do what I need to do. I'm sorry? Yeah.
It's hardly exists.
Are there any kibbutzim that are?
There are. They're
not really the privatized ones.
It's surprisingly the richest kibbutzim stayed in socialism, and those that don't have anything became like privatized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard because I feel I'm working harder than another person. So why? Why does he sign up for the car and he gets it and I don't? I'm sorry?
It's it's a nice idea, but it's really not practical.
Yeah.
Not two people are equal in their ability, in their personality, their ability and willingness to contribute, and their needs. So
it's bound to lead to some dissent, right? But that's what it is, though. That's why a person would sign up for that. Okay, so here we have a situation, as I started to say before, where the Torah is in a revolutionary way addressing the world then, but it's not something that applies to us today. Nowadays we don't have it. We don't do it. We have. I would say society as a whole. Well, at least. In many parts of the world, it's a serious problem today still of slavery. Right? We shouldn't delude ourselves, living in the United States. Right? I mean, there are situations that say even here there is, children who are taken and part of a sex trade and things like that. So we shouldn't delude ourselves, but certainly it's not something that fully applies to us today. Thankfully. So why would the Torah? Let's take what Amy was saying. So why would the Torah start with this? Why would the Torah start with this?
It has to be a lesson,
right?
For us.
Right? And of all things, why start with the person who stole and can't pay and being sold? B, a person who sells himself, and taking into account Amy's point that it doesn't really apply to us today. So why would the Mishpatim start specifically with this Eved? What do you say?
Maybe the lowest stage that a person can be in.
Most vulnerable.
Vulnerable. Like the lowest that you can,
Therefore what? So why did the Torah start with that?
To value, to help this person to get out of this situation and value life, value yourself.
Okay.
Maybe too, that we all, in life sometimes we all have these lowest, below times.
Beautiful. Right?
She wants to know. I said that they put the slaves to the mezuzah and they cut their hair and they said let him go, no?
No.
Cut almost. We'll come to that soon.
I've heard
The opposite.
We'll come to that soon. Okay? We'll come to that in a moment. Right? So what Yafi and Amy are saying, I think, is very powerful. Right? The Torah is first addressing those who are in the most distressed of situations, right? And that's where we need to make sure that we're not writing them off, we're not forgetting about them, they're not becoming invisible. But those who are who are the most vulnerable and in the most dire of situations, that's who we begin with. And I think as parents, I like the expression, we're only as happy as our least happy child, right? But I think, who does the parent really worry about? The child that's not doing so well. The child that's struggling financially, emotionally, family-wise. That's who is on our mind the most. Right? Those are the ones that that will keep us up at night, and it's hard to fall asleep. Right? So Avinu Shebashamayim, our parent in heaven, right, who does he first address? Right? Those who are the most vulnerable, those who are in the most dire of situations. Right? And as you added on, we all go through. We and those around us all go through our ups and our downs, and to remind us to focus, right? To make sure we take care of ourselves during our downs, and make sure that we are compassionate and aware when those around us are going through their difficult times, their downs. Nice. Nice. So you brought up the nirtza. Let's take a look over there. Right?
Rabbi?
Yes.
There's something before that I think every year I cannot get over it. That's if he comes with his wife, he goes out free with his wife. But if his master gave him a woman, a wife, and he has kids, then when he goes, he lives by himself.
Yeah. So, okay. So
It doesn't matter if he came with his wife or he has a wife after.
the wife afterwards. Yes. The wife afterwards we're talking about is a non-Jewish wife. It's a shifcha Kanaanit. It's a
It doesn't say out loud.
Well, yes and no. I'll show you how we can see. Okay. Now, im adonav yitan lo isha, right? Right. So, well, yes. If he gives him now, the master can't give him a Jewish wife. Who is this Jewish wife that the master is giving him? What control does the master have over a Jewish wife, of a regular Jewish woman?
Yeah.
Why?
Maybe she's
why
a slave.
Why can't he be Jewish wife?
Maybe he has a Jewish slave.
Yeah,
A
that's
Jewish
what,
woman has
that's
a
what I
slave.
was thinking.
A Jewish woman is a slave, he's not allowed to marry her off.
Why not?
If he has a Jewish maid servant,
Yeah.
then there are two options. And, okay, you're not going to like this one, I'll try to explain it. There are two options. He can marry her. Either he can marry her,
Who's he?
the master, or his son can marry her.
If it's she's
The Jewish slave?
The Jewish maid servant.
Okay.
Either he can marry her or his son can marry her. And keep in mind that this was, well, the Gemara says that if a person, there are two situations where a person sells something and will not see a siman bracha, will not see any blessing from that, from the money they got from that sale. Number one is if he sells a Sefer Torah. Number two is if he sells his daughter to be a maidservant. Okay? He sells his daughter to be a maidservant, then 6 years, she goes out free. Yovel, she goes out free. Redemption, she goes out free. If she reaches the age of 12 and a half, right, which is a na'ara, right, bat mitzvah we'll call it, right, she goes out free. Now, at any point, the adon, let's see it inside. Let's say 4:19, then we'll double back to what we said before, okay? 4:18 first in Hebrew. V'chim kor ish et bito la'ama. Yafi v'chavod. You started. You started this, Yafi.
Okay.
Right, the new paragraph there on 4:18, verse 7.
וכי אם קור איש את ביתו לאמה, לא תצא כצאת העבדים. אם ראה בעיני אדוניה, אשר לא יעדה, והפדה לעם נוכרי, לא ימשול למוכרה בבגדו בה. ואם לבנו יעדנה, כמשפט הבנות יעשה לה. אם אחרת ייקח לו, שאירה כסותה ועונתה לא יגרע.
ואם
שלוש אלה לא יעשה לה, ויצאה חינם אין כסף.
Okay, in English, starting on 4:19 with verse 7. Let's take that first in English. Amy, you got it?
I got it. If a man will sell his daughter as a bondswoman, she will not leave like the leave-taking of the slaves. If she is displeasing in the eyes of her master, who should have designated her for himself, he shall assist her in her redemption. He shall not have the power to sell her to a strange man, for he had betrayed her.
Okay, now just 1 second.
Wait a second.
Now, he shall not have, right? If she is displeasing in the eyes of her master.
That's terrible.
Okay? Now understand, Okay? First of all, don't misunderstand this, right? She is not there for him in any sexual way, right? However, one of the reasons why a person would reach this point of desperation of selling his daughter is as an opportunity for upward mobility. Now keep in mind, this is a time, and up to 100 years ago, marriages were arranged. Okay, so let's not ask, but 1 second, right? Maybe she's not in love.
She
right?
wouldn't sell herself then as a
Correct.
slave. She would never do that.
Right?
Okay?
And we're talking about marriages were arranged. Here's an opportunity for his daughter. He's in abject poverty. He's selling his daughter. Right? So, right? Not as a plaything, heaven forbid. Right? As a worker there in the house. She reaches 12 and a half, she goes out free. Yovel, 6 years, all those things, she goes out free. But the real idea is that she will marry into this family, either to him or one of his sons, and now she will be a full-scale wife, as we go on to, and that's what it says, if she is displeasing the eyes of her master, meaning if he doesn't want to marry her, who should have designated her for himself. Right? You know, at a marriage, we give a ring. We give something of value. If he were to marry her, the original sale money going to the father, that is the marriage. Meaning that's meant to be a marriage. Ideally, that's what this is meant to be. So he should have designated her for himself. He shall assist in the redemption, meaning he lowers the price as the years go by. He does not have the power to sell it to a strange man, for he had betrayed her. So he can't give her away to anyone else.
Okay.
Coming back to your point originally, we'll go a little further in English. But he can't give her away to anyone else. So going back to, if the master gave him a wife, what wife is he giving her?
He can't give the
What control does he have over any Jewish woman, even a Jewish woman who is his bondswoman, right? He has no control to give her. So who does he have control to give? That's why it must be a shifcha kananit, a non-Jewish slave woman. We'll see a little more on that soon as we come back to your point. Let's go a little further. This is very important. Okay. If he had, verse 9, Amy, if he had designated her.
If he had designated her for his son, he shall deal with her according to the rights of the young woman. If he shall take another in addition to her, he shall not...
more than one wife.
Yeah, diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital relationship.
Okay. So what's fascinating is, right, there are three, in the ketubah, right, there are obligations that the man has to the wife. It's learned out, the obligations of a husband to wife is learned out from these three words. She'er, kasut, va'ona. Right? Food, clothing, marital relationship. Where do we learn out the obligation of a man to his wife, of every Jewish man to his wife? Where do we learn it out from? From the case where he married this bondswoman. And it's saying, right, if he takes another woman in addition to her, more than one wife, which then was allowed, right? So then she can't be, the housekeeper. No. He cannot diminish her food or clothing or marital relationship. She is a full-scale wife. What's fascinating to me is that we learn out the obligation of a husband to wife from this relationship to show us that this becomes a full wife. So therefore, the way we understand this whole sale is as a way of getting a life, getting a better start in life for his daughter. That's what the yiyud is. Okay. So now coming back to where you were before, Yafi. If the owner gave this Jewish slave a wife, what wife can the owner unilaterally give to the Jewish slave? Right? But only a non-Jewish slave woman.
So why not be able to take her with him? Why not be able to let them go? I mean...
Okay, just 1 second.
He was Jewish.
Okay, just 1 second. Let's go further.
Oh, no, it didn't
The Im Omar Yomar Eved. Page 418 on the top now. If the slave will say, Ahavti et Adoni,
Right.
I love my master. He's great.
Yeah.
Right? This kibbutz.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Et ishti. The et banai. I love my wife. I love my children. Lo eitzei chofshi.
So he's giving up his freedom.
So I don't want to go out free. Why? Because I don't want to leave my master or my wife or my children. Now, if it was a Jewish wife, right? So then this is his wife. It's going to go with him. She's going to go with him. The children are their children. However, the same way that a Jewish man and a non-Jewish wife, the children are not considered to be Jewish, so too a Jewish man and a slave woman, the children follow the status of the mother. Let's put it like that. Right? A Jewish woman, no matter who her husband is, right? Her husband can be the Pope. I don't think he gets married. Whatever the case might be, right? The kids are Jewish, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. You'll forgive me. And a non-Jewish woman, the children are not Jewish. The children have the status of the mother. Over here, the mother is a non-Jewish slave woman, so the children have the status of non-Jewish slaves.
But what tells me that with all the great social awareness, and it's really revolutionary here, it just gets to Jews. So if it's a non-Jewish, your life is less.
Which is
than
actually
the Jewish life. So this is something that is kind of disturbing, although they have become up, so they are aware of the social value, whatever was brought up here, but still they don't, they're limited to Jewish
Okay.
people.
and even last Parsha, you said this Parsha is named for a convert, so we are supposed to show love to all. That was just in the last portion, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So how does one get a non-Jewish slave? Okay, how does one become the owner of a non-Jewish slave? Right? Right. It's not by going into battle and taking people. It's not by going there and with a paddy wagon and grabbing people and throwing them in. The only way that can happen is by this person is a slave owned by a non-Jew, and the person, right? This person is already a slave. Then a person can buy that person. So we're not enslaving someone, right? But we are buying this person, right? And at that point, that is the start of the conversion process. Meaning at that point, they become partially Jewish, right? And with certain mitzvot applying to them. So the understanding is that it will be better for them in that situation than in their previous situation. We're not taking a free person and turning him into a slave. We're taking a slave and giving them a better situation. I too am somewhat troubled by this. To be perfectly honest. I too.
Yeah.
Sorry?
She can convert to be Jewish?
Yes.
Yes, she do.
Yes.
Yeah.
A person who is a non-Jewish slave, meaning that a Jew bought them from elsewhere, right? So that's already the first start of a conversion process, right? And we view it as being beneficial to them in that they are now no longer in an idolatrous environment, but rather in a monotheistic environment. So we view that as being a better situation for them, right?
Rabbi Ciner, but
Yeah.
why would the Jewish man want to have a non-Jewish wife as a slave if he's going to leave without her
So
anyway?
that's one of the downsides of being a slave, of Jewish slave, right? And that's really the one area of halacha where his status changes to a certain degree, right?
If he
And
marries
right
someone
that he can be married or can be with, not really full marriage, but can be with this somewhat marriage to this non-Jewish slave woman, right? And
then he's
and we can understand to a certain degree that that's not meant to be his life going forward, and therefore labriyut. When he leaves, right? So he leaves that behind and goes off to start a more normal life.
Because it seems like he can't really do mitzvot because he's having kids with this non-Jewish woman. So,
Again, all mitzvot apply to him. The
But
one
the kids
area
without
of
the
status change is this. Now, you brought up the idea of the nirtza. So if he says, I want to stay, then we put a hole in, we pierce his ear by the doorway, and he will be an Eved all the way until Yovel, until the Jubilee year. Right? Now, before we discuss that, let me ask another question. He's called an Eved Ivri. That's the term that we use, right? Ki tikneh Eved Ivri. When you acquire an Eved Ivri, which we've been describing it as a Jewish slave, isn't Ivri a strange term to use? Right? I mean, if you want to say Jewish slave, how would we imagine the Torah would say it? We're known as Daber El B'nai Yisrael. So an Eved Yisrael. Ama Yisraelit. Not an Eved Ivri, an Ama Ivriya. Why Ivri? What does Ivri mean?
When they were enslaved in Egypt, they were they drank.
Yeah, when we were enslaved in Egypt, we were called Ivrim. Right? What did Moshe say to Paro? Elohei Ivrim Nira Elai. The God of the Ivrim appeared to me. So why do you think we were referring to him and her as Ivri as opposed to Yisrael?
It was the lowest stage of the Israel.
It was our lowest stage, and now this person, either voluntarily or because of their actions, has been returned to that state. Right? This goes against the very core of who we are, of who we became. Do we hear? This is another explanation of why we begin with this. Right? When we left Egypt, what did we do? What was on our doorposts? What was on the blood of the korban? We left that behind and went out. Now this person, because of their actions or their choice, they're going back in. Not only that, after the 6 years, you want to stay longer? So what do we have? We have the ear, and we have the doorpost, and we have blood. What's he doing? He's going back in.
What's the symbolism of the ear?
So the ear, we say that the ozen, sheshama bahar Sinai, ki li atem avadim, velo avadim la avadim. The ozen, that ear, that heard on Sinai, ki li atem, me, you are your servants to me, God said. And now you've gone and willingly taken upon yourself the servitude to another person. So that's the ear. Yeah, to become a slave. Right? That is the ear.
It's really disturbing. It's disturbing.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, it's meant to be. It's meant to be a shake-up. That where are you going? Right? You're going backwards. You're not moving forward. Right? And not only that, you were brought. You were brought to a certain point, and now you're heading back. Right? We took you out of there. You're willingly going back in there. So you have these disturbing reminders that this is not what it is meant to be. Okay. In general, I think this Parsha, with these, we say where the rubber hits the road, these laws, right? Again, about damages, about wages, about guarding things, responsibilities. This comes. It's like we were up there, Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and now we're coming down to earth. We're almost crashing down to earth. So I'll read you a little bit from the Ramchal. Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto was one of the great Kabbalists, and also one of the great. This is in the 18th century, early 1700s. He lived in Tzfat, and he's written many of the classic Jewish, the Mesilat Yesharim, the Path of the Just. This is from Derech Hashem, the Way of God. He's just given us a whole structure to understand things. He's talking about mankind on this earth. And he's speaking about how we are a physical body with a soul, right? As opposed to the animal kingdom, which is a physical being with a living spirit. We have this physical body with a living spirit and an additional being. It's a merging of two beings, the spiritual and the physical. And we're placed into this world. And this place that we are placed in the midst of, it is a physical, darkened world. And everything around us is physical. And our dealings that we have here and in this world, we're forced to have dealings that are physical and material. Because we are physical and material, and we're in a physical material world. And who we are, what we are, forces us to be involved in this physical, materialistic world. We have to eat. We have to drink. We can't live without it. The kinyan. We need items. We need some currency. We need a place to live. We need to be able to buy clothing. The result is shebein mitzad gufo shel adam, whether we're looking at the person's body, bein mitzad olamo, we're looking at the world around us, bein mitzad asakav, we're looking at what we have to get involved with, hu tavua b'chomer u'meshuka b'chashko, we are immersed, we're sunken into this physicality. Umeshuka, and we're there in the midst of this darkness. V'amel gadol v'ishtadlut chazaka yisrech lo la'alot el matzav zach mizeh. So how are we supposed to lift ourselves up from this physical world with physical needs that we have to be, that we were made in a way that we have to be fully involved in it? How can we lift ourselves up el matzav zach? Shemen Zayit Zach, right, to a pure, holy state. When we are forced to be immersed in all of this. So he says, Ulam, me omek atzat chachmato, from the depth of God's counseled wisdom. Yitbarach Shemo, blessed is his name. Hayal l'sadar dvarim ba'ofen, it was to arrange matters in this way. She'af biyot ha'adam shakua b'chomer behechrach, that even while we are immersed in this necessary physicality, yuchal mitoch ha'chomer atzmo, we are able from this physical, va'esek ha'gufani, and from our dealings, our bodily, physical, materialistic dealings, to attain this purity, this perfection, this purification. The adarabba, on the contrary, hashpalato tihiyeh hagbahato. Our lowliness, that is the catapult for our ascent. Umisham yiknei yikar v'chavod she'en kamohu, and from there one can acquire this perfection and this honor that is nothing like it. Biyoto hofechet hachoshech l'or, v'et hatzalmavet l'noga yazriach, by turning the darkness into light, by turning this death-like into this brilliant glow.